we talk around the firehouse sometimes and we say, to walk calmly head first into a building that's on fire, those aren't normal people.
At Bella Media, we believe that every person has a unique story to tell.
As a creative marketing company, we get to meet some truly fascinating individuals.
They bring us their life experiences, challenges, and incredible stories.
So join us now as we dive into real human stories like this one.
Well, Chief, thank you so much for coming in today to talk with us.
You bet.
I'm really excited about this. I'm looking forward to our conversation. And we have a working relationship together, but recently we've been able to really sit down and kind of get to know each other personally. And I really enjoyed our time and conversation.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So, Chief, tell me about your career and how you got into the fire service.
Oh, goodness. It all kind of started in emergency services in general. I started as an EMT basic, working for a private ambulance service when I was 18 years old. So as soon as I got to the point to where insurance would cover me driving emergency vehicles, which was about 21 years of age, I started working for some 911 services on the ambulance, and went through with my paramedic and did that for a few more years. And I thought, if I'm if I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, basically, I really need to get on with the fire department. So I thought, well, I guess I'll go to the academy. So I did that. Got through the academy, and that kind of began the firefighter paramedic part of it. And from that point, I started working for the City of Humble Fire Department, and worked there for just about 10 years for the most part before I got an opportunity at East Tex Fire Department to start working there as their training officer, their department training officer. And then that kind of led to some other promotions and movement and responsibility and so forth. And now here we are. It's been almost 25 years altogether, because I'm 43 now. And this all began more or less when I was about 18.
Did you start out as a volunteer at all?
Not as a EMT. Well, I say not as an EMT at first. When I really started looking into getting involved in the fire department aspect of it, I did start volunteering a little bit, kind of on the side while I was on the ambulance, and did that a little bit for a little while before my paid professional career began in the fire service.
Was that all with East Tex, the volunteer? Or?
No, the whole time that I've been at East Tex, I started at East Tex Fire Department in, I want to say it was about 2006. They were my first paid firefighter position when I began at that point, as far as paid's concerned, and that was 2006. So, but before that, I volunteered with some rural county areas, and some things like that.
So before you started in EMT and fire service, you kind of shared with me, and maybe you don't want this aired, but you were kind of a hellraiser before then?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really kind of what segued me into emergency services. I won't get into detail about it, but we put it this way. When people ask where I went to high school, I say, well, I was supposed to go to high school, but I never really went. So I wound up, my mom picked me up one day from probably not the best place in the world. I should not have been there. And she said, look, this is a downward spiral. You need to do something. And it really hit home. So I thought, all right, well, she's right. I don't want to wind up dead or in prison, so I guess I better do something. And at that time, I think I was about 17. And she said, well, let's go to the college and see, what might work for you. So she took me to, it's Lone Star College now, but at the time it was North Harris something Community College District or something to that effect, the Tomball campus. and sat down with some advisors and stuff, started looking at careers and jobs and different things. And it sounded like, with my previously risky behavior, it sounded like a fit because, fire and emergency services is can be intense. It has its ups and downs for sure, but I think everybody in emergency services in general kind of has a little bit of that risky type of DNA. You know what I mean? So we talk around the firehouse sometimes and we say, to walk calmly head first into a building that's on fire, those aren't normal people.
Yeah.
So, obviously I say that jokingly, but you kind of get the idea as far as that goes. So, you got to have a little bit of that, that adrenaline aspect. You want to do some dangerous things, and we try to make it as safe as we can, but there's nothing that will ever remove a lot of the dangers that are involved. So anyways, my mom thought it was a good fit. I think I did too at the time, but I was kind of lost at that moment.
Thank God for good moms, huh?
Absolutely. My mom's amazing. She pulled me out of the ditches. So, but that's where it began, and that's kind of why I got started.
So what made you interested in the EMT side of things?
I think the whole time I was really thinking about going into the fire department, really. But my mom being a mom, she didn't want her baby to be subjected to some of those dangers. And so I think it fit well for my mom, and it did for me too. But I think I was always, always kind of headed in that direction, into the fire service. So.
How well did you do, like, in the school? I'm just curious what the school part of things.
EMT basic, I did horrible.
Really?
I barely passed. In fact, I think that my instructor and some of the other students were empathetic to my situation.
Yeah.
And they thought, if he doesn't do this, then, maybe he could go in the wrong direction. So, I barely passed, but
you passed.
I passed. It's kind of like, what do they call a doctor that made a 70 on the MCATs? They call him a doctor, right? So, so it, that's kind of the direction that it went. But after that, once I started to do the work, once I began the profession, it really panned out. I found a passion in it, and I found a way. I've always been a man of faith for the most part, just like anybody else, I'm not perfect, and sometimes you're doing great and sometimes you're not, as far as your path that you're supposed to follow and following God. But I always kind of felt like it was a calling, and once I got on the truck, I realized, like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. So.
Were you, your confidence level back then, how was it in the beginning when you were going through the class and stuff? Were you confident, you're like, I got this, or was it a real fight for you?
In the beginning, I think it was kind of a fight. I wasn't the best school person at the time.
Yeah.
I never really went to high school like I was supposed to. Just kind of intermittently, I got into a lot of trouble. And I just wasn't the best student. So in the beginning, I really didn't have that great school experience to feel good about everything that I just went through, through EMT, and then into the profession. I think everybody, whenever they first begin their career, but especially in emergency services, there's so much experiential learning that happens.
Yeah.
The book can't prepare you for what you're going to see.
Yeah.
The book can't prepare you for what you're going to experience. There's just no way. And, that changes your perspectives and outlooks on the way that you handle certain calls, and it affects you to various degrees. So
I'm curious. So I've been in the fire service too. You know that. I've shared that with you.
Yep.
Have you met firefighters that were good in school?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or would you say the majority of them kind of struggled?
No, I think, I think every class, it seems like with my experience in training and education within the fire service, every class has its personalities, right? They, a portion of them are going to struggle more than others. Then you have kind of the middle of the road group of people. And then you have, a few guys that really excel, and you could just tell that they're just born for it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I felt that way too in my class, but I felt like too there was a lot of guys similar, and I relate to you very much because high school was terrible for me, barely passed. I did take EMT basic too, and I didn't even finish. I dropped out because it just, I don't know, it wasn't my passion, and I loved the fire service side of things.
Yeah.
And at the time, most departments wanted you to be an EMTB before you even got on. Is that still the case, or?
It depends on the organization.
Right.
Some organizations, and it also, there's some larger scale organizations that they have different contracts for different situations. I'll take Houston Fire Department, for example. They have a few different recruit type situations. There was a point in time years ago when they were really, really struggling to get paramedics on the squads, on the truck. So they were really trying to recruit people that had their paramedic walking into the door and might not have their fire certifications. So with our organization, with East Texas Fire Department, what we do is we take guys that are pretty much done with the basics of school. And then a lot of them are pretty fresh out of the academy, usually fairly new. We just kind of build them up from there. And there's a lot of different directions you can go in fire and emergency services. So I always kind of correlate it to be something kind of like the military, right? There's like in the Army, there's a whole bunch of different MOS, different methods of service. And the fire department's very similar. There's a lot of different jobs that you can do.
So after you finished your EMTB, and then did you have that plan to go into fire service next, or was it just
not initially? No, not initially. And like I said, initially I was kind of struggling quite a bit. So I honestly wasn't quite sure of much of anything at the time. But that's probably pretty common for a 17-year-old kid.
Well, yeah.
So. No, at first it was, I wasn't 100% sure, but it didn't take long. Within the first year or two, I met a couple of people that were working for some of these ambulance services, and they were working there part-time, and their full-time job was they were a firefighter paramedic or a firefighter EMT somewhere or another. And after some of those conversations, I realized, like, okay, if I really want to do this, I've got to go in that direction.
So you started out volunteering first?
Yeah, and on the fire side, yeah. EMT, as far as EMS goes, I've always been paid in that aspect on the ambulance, but yeah. That kind of helped me get my feet wet a little bit, and try to get a feel for the industry, what was going on. And once I got started doing, some of the volunteer stuff as a firefighter, it's contagious, and you can really tell, right, who those people are. They catch the bug, you can see it.
For sure.
They get, big wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, and they come out of that burn building, and they're like, okay, this is what I want to do.
Do you remember your first fire?
I do remember my first fire. My first, I'm going to say, real fire. Because before that, there was burn buildings and stuff, but those are concrete buildings, with hay, so it's controlled environment. The first uncontrolled environment was a trailer house fire, and nobody was there. Like, I showed up as a volunteer. It was a very rural area. And there was one guy trying to do everything. He was pumping the truck. He was getting the truck ready, and there was probably about a 17-year-old kid at the time. I think I was in my early 20s, and this kid was real fresh. wasn't quite sure. So I asked them if they needed help, and that's really actually what started my volunteer stuff that I did for a brief period of time. And he said, "Yeah, it's you're a firefighter?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am. Graduated the academy and this and that." And he said, "Okay, well, take my gear and go help." So I put on his gear and proceeded to the front door. And I mean, this thing was just blowing and going. And the young guy that was on the hose line initially, I followed the hose line into the house. Couldn't see anything. Couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And everything's popping and banging. You could hear structural support members starting to crack and break. And I talked to him. I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he kind of gave me a brief synopsis of it. And I said, "Okay." And I picked up the hose line and started to do my suppression stuff. And about 5 or 10 minutes into it, I said, "Hey, man, you back there?" Crickets.
Oh, no.
Like, "Hey, man, you back there?"
Oh, no.
He was gone.
Dang.
So once I realized I'm in there all by myself, I'm like, okay, I really shouldn't be here by myself. So I kind of backed out a little bit to see what was going on. And anyways, but by that time, some other people were starting to show up, and everything went well. So no victims.
How'd you feel afterwards?
Fire went out. Good day. Just charged, man.
Yeah.
Just riding that level of adrenaline.
Yeah.
So excited. Absolutely. And it was, you talk about when did I realize, that this was for me or something to that effect. And that's really probably that aha moment. It was like, okay, this was a real fire. This wasn't a concrete building with hay. This is my thing. So, yeah.
That's an awesome feeling.
Mm-hmm. It was. It really is. Yeah. Even all the way up to a year or two ago, the last structure fire that I made. So there's a lot of time in between there.
Yeah.
A whole lot of fires. A whole lot of calls.
What was your first paid fire?
East Tex Fire Department.
East Tex was?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So after starting my volunteer career, briefly lived, but I heard from a friend of mine. He's a captain actually now with the City of Humboldt Fire Department. His name's Brian May. Mm-hmm. Good friend of mine. We were working on the ambulance together. And he said, "Hey man, there's this organization down in Harris County, and they're starting to hire some people." At the time, nobody was in the Harris County area really. They were all still volunteer primarily. So to just find a job that was willing to pay you to fight fire was like you won the lottery, So he's like, "Hey, there's this organization down in Harris County, and they're hiring guys." He said, I got a job down there the other day working part-time. He says, "It's not full-time, but at least you can get some fire and run some calls and stuff." And I said, "Really?" And he kind of gave me some information on it, and it turned out that I knew one of the captains and a couple other people that were there. They highly recommended it, so I went down, filled out an application, met Chief Harris. I think that was in 2006, and yeah, that was the beginning of it.
So you were a rookie for how long back then?
Oh, it seems like being a rookie back then was harder, and it seems like it lasted forever. I would say a couple years.
Like different helmet colors back then?
Some places did. Okay. Some places did. We didn't specifically.
Okay.
So.
Well, do you remember that moment when you got promoted from rookie to Were you on the? Where'd you start out at? Were you a pipeman?
I was just riding backwards.
Okay.
And yeah, that was kind of it.
Do you remember that moment though that you got promoted from rookie to off probation, or was there a time back then they didn't have stages?
Yeah, they just that wasn't something that we did a lot at the time. Now we celebrate it, and one of the reasons why I like to celebrate it, and we put these things together for the guys, is because it wasn't celebrated, and when you work that hard for something for so long, you deserve a little something. So it's good to have some of those pinning ceremonies, as they call. But I never got pinned until just the other day.
Really?
When I never got pinned. I was a firefighter. I never officially held the rank of driver operator, but I did drive and operate the truck quite a bit. Finally made lieutenant, and then from lieutenant I made captain, from captain to district chief, and from district chief to deputy chief, and never got pinned. Yeah, it just didn't happen.
Huh.
It was always one thing or another, and it just never worked out. Well, so we've started doing this within our organization more regularly. We have an events committee that helps put together some of those programs and ceremonies. They caught wind that I had never been pinned before, so they took it upon themselves. They kept it secret. They didn't tell me about it. They asked me to be the presenter, to speak, and some other stuff. So I was there thinking that I was here to represent them. It was all about them, and it was, and it still is. I had no idea that they were going to do that, and they kind of surprised me. And let me tell you that if I was going to get pinned ever, that was the way I would want it to go, because my guys did it for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a gift. It was something they didn't have to do, but they found out that was the case, and they took it upon themselves to make sure that it happened. And I really feel like that speaks anthems for the people that work for us. That's what it's all about. The fire service it's supposed to be all about, the guys next to you.
Well, I know you're about that for sure, working with you and all the stuff we've done together, collaboration. Mm-hmm. And I know your people respect you. They all speak very highly of you.
Well, I appreciate it. It's nice of them. They're great people too. I couldn't do anything that I do without the amazing support that we get from our guys, from our people. Yeah,
and you guys are doing some big things. I mean, the training videos that we've been able to do with you guys, you're always ahead of the game, and the technology, and you're forward thinking. It's exciting times for East Tex. It is. We have been doing a lot of that stuff, and I appreciate the compliment. We try to be as much as possible. I always kind of had it in my mind that a digital Facebook was kind of the direction that the future would be going in. I think there's a lot of aspects to having a paperback book, and firefighters are big into tradition, right? They like the idea of being responsible for that, but years ago I kind of had it in my mind that was going to be the case down the road, and you guys helped us to actualize that and realize it into reality, make it happen. So, and you guys do great work too. We appreciate everything you do for us. We appreciate it. We really enjoy working with you guys and all the crew, and you always take care of us, bringing us Starbucks every time you come in, and we appreciate it. Man, tell me about your faith, and you mentioned that. I know I watched a speech that you did, a commencement speech. Was it Lone Star, or where was that? Yeah, that was Lone Star College. It was the Kingwood campus, I believe. Yeah, I learned a lot about you that day, and I thought it was interesting. So I kind of want to hear maybe a small version of that speech, or what you were talking about that day. Sure. Let's see. So I kind of stole the Faith Family Fire thing, to be completely transparent, but it embodies exactly what I think it works out the best for. I can't tell people
their priorities should be. But in that instance, they asked me to speak in regards to my career, me as a person, and try to give them some good advice that might benefit them. And like I was saying in that speech, I would be doing them and everybody else a disjustice if I just used the cool catchphrases, and the things that are on social media. I mean, not to say that all of that is wrong, but this is a very opinionated time in this world. Some of them aren't as true as others, and I believe in sticking with the truth. So faith, family, fire, in that order, 1, 2, 3, really helped me keep my priorities in order. And I wasn't born with that methodology. I mean, it took time and mistakes for me to realize that, okay, this is why things are supposed to work like this. And faith has to come first in what you do. It's, if you don't have a solid foundation of faith in your life, nothing else is going to work out very well. And maybe it does in different instances, but that feeling of satisfaction that, okay, this is in order. You have to have that good foundation in place. And I think that's really, most literally the founding principle in all of it. You've got to have somewhere to begin. You've got to have your morals and your ethics in order. And where do morals and ethics come from? I mean, a lot of people refer to their faith, whatever it may be, as the source of where they decide what is right and what is wrong. So I always want to try to do what's right. And faith is what I think leads people to do good things, like I said in the speech. So whatever their faith may be, we go to First Baptist of the Woodlands First, and that doesn't mean that you have to go to a Baptist church, but I would highly encourage anybody that's either looking for something to believe in or faith to do their research, to look around and find something, because most true faiths are rooted in good things. And I think that is a fundamental concept for people all over the world. And I think we've strayed away from that as a world and as a nation recently. And people wonder why they're lost. People wonder why all these horrible things are happening. So that was the first thing. Family being the second. Everything you do, especially once you have kids, you get married, you realize how important family is. Like, you're not just working to work for complete strangers anymore at that point, and I'm okay with that. It's okay to benefit the world. But once you have a wife and kids, or, whatever your family situation might be, you realize, I'm not just doing this for me anymore. I'm doing this for them. And you've got to have somebody to lean on in life. There's a lot of people that are very unfortunate and they don't have blood family. But like in that speech, like I talked about, just because you don't have blood family doesn't mean you don't have family. Especially in the fire service. One of the things that I told the recruits in that academy was, that day, their family had grown significantly. And that's the truth. The fire service is one of those professions that still holds true to family, to brotherhood. Examples being, I've had a captain before that he was having trouble affording to pay somebody to re-roof his house. So the whole shift got together, went over there, and we all re-roofed his house.
Wow.
It's all about that. It's all about being there for the guy next to you. So, family. And then the fire service, that's interchangeable with whatever. You can work unto the Lord in a million different ways. The fire service is our chosen way and my chosen way. You've got to hold true to that career, if it is truly your calling, whatever it may be. And to us, that's what it is. That's how we're serving. That's our calling. So you have to hold true to it. Training is super, super important. Some guys kind of have a misconception that as soon as they get out of the academy, that might be it. Maybe do a little bit here and there, but man, that is so far from the truth.
Yeah.
That's just the beginning. So you have to train, you have to better yourself, and you have to better each other. And that was kind of the synopsis of that speech.
Yeah, I love what you said about the faith and the community too, the side of things. I mean, if you think about it too, the Bible talks about how we were adopted and grafted in through Jesus and his blood, and now we're all made into we're made in his image. We start in his image, and then we're grafted in and adopted. I think that's such a beautiful picture, and I think it's part of the fire service. Why it's so great is the brotherhood, and that's one thing about being a Christian is you have that brother and sisterhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
With you. That's why I think community is so important, and I think it's one reason why it attracted me to the fire service for sure.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfortunate too, because you might run across a few firefighters here and there that they don't think it's the case anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe they had a bad experience or something bad happened or whatever. But if it's, I kind of feel like it is a little hit and miss in the world that we live in today. But we've got to hold on to it as an organization. We've got to hold on to it as a profession. That's what makes the whole thing so great. That's one of those foundational principles. People watch all these movies and stuff, and it is Hollywood, and people see different things going on film that aren't 100% accurate. But that aspect of that brotherhood it's got to stay with us. And to a degree, I don't think it will ever go away. And I'll give you an example. So you're a firefighter. You're headed head first into a structure fire. Can't see your hand in front of your face. You're huffing and puffing, and you're exhausted. You got all this stuff on, this thing stuck to your face. It's very uncomfortable. It's very hot. And your sole comfort has to be placed 100% in the person next to you. There was a couple of fires that I made over the years where, I was starting to feel a little nervous. Things were kind of not going well.
Sure.
And to be able to reach out and feel the boot of the guy next to me, I didn't care who it was. It was another firefighter, and that's all that mattered to me. I wasn't there alone. And I think that fundamental principle is what really continues to drive guys to do some of the things that they do. They say bravery it's not that you're not afraid. It's what you do with that fear.
Yeah.
And, it really helps reinforce the good things and the right things. And whenever you have somebody there with you that's going through the same stuff you are. So, man,
you sound like you know a lot about leadership.
I do, to a degree. I mean, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes too, but I've had my fair share of it, and I've learned through mistakes.
Yeah, I think you were sharing with me too some of those things that you were learning through it. There's a lot of these principles are not new.
Yeah, a lot of leadership principles. So I've in the later years of my career, my job is to quote unquote lead people And in the fire service, that's super important because it's kind of a paramilitary sort of organization. So what you do greatly influences those that you work with. I don't want to say people that follow me, because the way that I look at it is I subscribe more to the servant leadership profile of leadership. So what I like to think is that the guys that are on the truck, everybody from the rookie that just got there to the district chief that's been there for decades, I work for them. I'm there to help them do their job and be as successful as they possibly can. And so anyways, I kind of got off topic there a little bit, but
that's okay.
But that was kind of my takeaway from the whole situation, and that's more or less what all those principles kind of go towards. And I think a lot of those principles, those books and all the things, they all point to the same direction. And they all point towards the Bible. That's where the stuff comes from. I mean, literally, philosophy, 800 BC, you talk about Aristotle, Socrates, all the different philosophers. They were floundering a little bit, looking for truth, right? And but they were beginning to establish ethics philosophically, and that turned into a science, and then the science turned into, well, faith is attached to it, basically. And there are some different perspectives from various different religions and faiths, but a lot of them they hold true across all. And love thy neighbor, and don't kill people. Very simple things like that, but they are fundamental truths. And I think that's what really most leadership really needs to be based on. Is you need to want what's best for the people you work with. You need to have their best interests at heart. You need to try to do the right thing. And I mean, there's so many leaders out there now there's a lot of leaders out there that are either they misunderstand leadership. They think it's supposed to be you do what I say. And sometimes it does have to be that way. Sometimes it does. You're never going to keep everybody 100% happy. But I really feel like if you adhere to the other side of things, what can I do to help you? What can I do to make you as successful as you can possibly be? I think that's first and foremost, it's better received. The individual's more apt to say, oh, okay, this guy's going to try to punch me in the face and, make me do push-ups for all day long. He's actually wanting to know what he can do to help me out. And so it's, in communication, there's communication in leadership, obviously, and it's really important. But you can't force your views and opinions on somebody else. They have to be receptive. So I think that kind of runs together. But there's a lot of principles like that, and I think they all correlate. Eventually, they're traced back to faith. So I get a lot of those leadership principles from the Bible. There's so many different people that have written books, Simon Sinek and all these other people, and a few of them say that that's where they get those principles from. And it's funny how faith and science, they're supposed to not mix, right? The science community says, no, there's no room for God in science. And then some people say there's no room for science in God. Well, I'm kind of in the middle where I really think, it's kind of like, well, you take a soldier in a war, you give him a rifle, and is the soldier fighting or is the rifle fighting? Well, it's a combination of the two. Science is the way that I think that God does things in our world.
It's a good analogy.
So how could you say that there's no room for faith in science? That's how things work. I mean, literally down to the atom. That's a part of our shirts and our uniforms. That's God's design. Mm-hmm. It was built that way on purpose. So, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the way that I look at it. You can't exclude faith. And that kind of another topic being mental health. There's so many organizations out there, and as I speak, we've recently suffered a death in the emergency services community, and some of our organizations and others have suffered similar deaths in emergency services due to some mental health stuff. And everybody wants to know, well, how are we going to solve this problem? How are we going to fix this? This can't continue. We have to do something about this. Well, what's the first thing people do when things really go bad? Even the people that aren't religious, they pray. They cling to their faith. So how could you say, how could we say as an industry, as a profession, that, well, we want to help people's mental health, but we're not willing to talk about faith? That's to me, that's a fundamental misconception.
Why do you think that is, though?
I think it's complicated. I think it's really complicated, honestly. There's a lot of Christians and faith-based people out there that they kind of tend to look down their nose at other people, and I think that doesn't help sometimes. I think that pushes people away from faith. And on the other side of it, I think there's a lot of people that are very misguided. They're not looking at the world and things that are going on through the lenses of truth. And so I think all of the above kind of sets us off into a spin in the wrong direction. And faith in some people's eyes has received poor publicity.
Yeah.
And as a result of that poor publicity, people have veered away from it. But this nation, this country, the United States of America, was founded on a pilgrimage, people seeking religious freedom. And I just don't see how it's possible for people to stay in a positive mindset for mental health and omit God from that. It's just not feasible in my mind. So anyways,
that's good stuff. I think mental health is such an important thing, and I think you're right. Without faith, I mean, when did you, I know you had some, if you're willing to share, when did your faith become strengthened? Can you give us some examples or some times in your life where, or what was the moment where you did, realize that I need the Lord?
Mm-hmm. So many times. And, like I said a minute ago, the first thing that happens when people, they think that their life's in jeopardy or the life of a loved one's in jeopardy or something to that effect, the first thing that they do is start talking to God. Mm-hmm. And, I would correlate that fact to be true in my own life too, through deaths in my family, through deaths in the fire service. I've known a number of people in my career that have died or been seriously injured there. Also in trying to find my own strengths, trying to find the right way to do things, especially in leadership. because if you're leading from the wrong principles, from the wrong foundation, you're going to get the wrong results. So quite a few. Trying to think of something specific. Okay, so here's one. When I think it was my mid-20s, it was close to Christmas, and I was a paramedic. My primary job was on the ambulance, running calls. And over a stretch of 4 shifts, I ran 7 pediatric fatalities.
Oof.
It was, or full arrests. So I worked a 48. I was off for 24 hours. I came back and did another 48-hour shift. I was working a lot of overtime at that point. And so the first few calls came and went, and by the 4th or 5th, I was like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, this is why. It's awful.
Yeah.
To go through stuff like that and to see things like that happen to other people, and what the parents go through, and the kids are innocent in all of it usually. They didn't do anything to deserve that. So after the 7th, I was like, I'm going through this for a reason. It's got to be a reason, because I don't know I'm not aware of any other paramedic that's run 7 pediatric fatalities or full arrests in under a week. So I was like, wow, so I had to pray about it a lot to get through it. Because at the time, we didn't have all this mental health stuff. We didn't. It was, well, go talk to your partner about it, and by the way, we got calls holding, you need to get back on the truck. I mean, literally, that's the way that it was, And I didn't have anywhere to go and really have anybody to talk to. And at the time, it was kind of frowned upon to tell anybody about what was happening and what was going on. So all I could do was turn to my own faith. That's it. That's all I had.
Yeah.
You couldn't really talk about it at work, because then they pin the crazy sign on your forehead. Nobody wants to work with the crazy guy, right? And and then too, I think at the time it was a false impression in our profession that it was a sign of weakness, that it was a sign that you couldn't handle the job. So nobody really wanted to talk about it. Everybody was just put on this facade, like, okay, I'm good, no problem. No, there is a problem. There always has been a problem. It's been around for a long time. There's no way you could tell me that anybody in this world works 7 pediatric fatalities, violent fatalities, and not be affected by that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really had to cling to my faith in that aspect, because I didn't have anywhere else to go.
In what ways did it start to affect you, do you think?
So, I use that as one example. There's multiple others.
Sure.
But in that aspect, to follow that instance, like I was saying, it was close to Christmas. At the time I was married, I had 4 stepkids at the time. And we were going over to my mom's house for Christmas to open packages. And around every single one of those instances, there's Christmas presents involved, because it's Christmas, they're children, kids get Christmas presents. So every time there was packages and Christmas presents involved. And so we sat down to open Christmas presents, and my heart started racing. I couldn't, because it was my kids opening Christmas presents, and it brought back this flashback of everything that I had gone through a month or two before. And I had to excuse myself. I was shaking really bad and had to go outside. And I wound up having to have, a few drinks just to be able to sit and watch my own kids open their Christmas presents. It was rough.
What'd you start to do? Now you seem like you're in a good state.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some actions and steps that you think you took to help get you healthy again?
Faith, for one. That's the biggest part. And that's one of the reasons why I'm such a proponent. Because there's going to be times in this world where nobody's going to be able to understand what's happening to you. And that's all you're going to have. That's all you're going to have one day. And outside of that, I was able to talk to some people as far as, partners and stuff like that. But I had to be really careful in the way that I talked about it. But it was funny because, you talk to people in groups, other first responders at the time. This was over a decade ago.
Yeah.
About PTSD and mental health. And in groups, and everybody's like, "Oh, come on, man, you're good," sort of thing. But then you talk to your partner in the ambulance one-on-one, and they're like, "Yeah, I've had similar things happen to me." So not being alone helps in that, and I think the open forum of our profession now is headed in a better direction to identify that these things do happen. And there needs to be an outlet. So just that was a bit of an outlet for me to see that some of those things were developing, for 2, and talking to my partner for 3. And then eventually I dove down deep into a bottle of whiskey. And it affected me. I mean, I was basically a functional alcoholic. You ask my wife, and she'd tell you, yeah, if he was home, he was out in the garage drinking. And after a little while, I realized, man, I just can't keep doing this. I got to do something. So I sought out some counseling, worked through some of that stuff verbally, just kind of talked about it and brought some things to light. And then that counselor also kind of helped me realize some things that I had forgotten. My brain tried to protect itself, I guess, and just stashed it away. And to deal with some of those skeletons in the closet and yeah, all the above was what it took to get past that. So, I don't know. I guess some people are more susceptible than others, I'm sure, by personality and so forth. But, I mean, like I said, I don't know of anybody that could work 7 pediatric fatalities in 5 days.
Yeah.
And not be affected by that somehow.
Sure.
So...
Well, I mean, I appreciate you sharing your story. I think this could help a lot of people.
Yeah,
a lot of
too.
It's important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's definitely gotten a lot better.
It has
in today's time, but I think still we got a long ways to go. I know that's something that we're passionate about here. With our organization, with the mental health. I mean, that's how we got into it. Was in the fire service, was doing videos for Chaplain Skip over at Emergency Ministries.
Mm-hmm.
And so
yeah, I know Skip. He's a good dude.
It's important for us, and we're glad that there's people out there that, like you, that are in the service that are willing to walk the walk and talk the talk.
Sure.
So I know we're in the very infancy stages of it, but what can you share about we're working with you personally to help you fire up a podcast as well.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your vision and mission of what you're trying to accomplish there.
So this is going to be something that I'm doing on my own. This is a calling that's more of a ministry. And even though I'm kind of hesitant to call it a ministry, but and the reason why I say that is because I don't want people to think, as soon as they watch the podcast, they have to open their Bible and start searching for scripture and things like that. I really feel like my mission in that is to help people realize that, not everybody's perfect. I am far from perfect, but if I'm able to have faith, then anybody should be able to, So that's why I'm a little, I don't want to say reluctant at all, really, but maybe you understand what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
I feel like it might be, maybe it's a better fit for me not to, but either way, I think at the end of the day, what it boils down to is it's a ministry of some sort. So we talked about some websites that we were looking at trying to put together. I think it was Frontline Faith. Was that what we went with?
We're throwing some names around. I know we're in the very infancy stages of it,
Gotcha.
but I think we'll keep going. But I think just sharing a little bit of your thoughts of what you're excited about, maybe.
Yeah. I think it's an opportunity for everything literally that we just talked about. Literally everything that we just talked about, from faith to mental health to leadership to hot topics within our profession in the fire service. I really think that there's a lot of people out there, a lot of very experienced, well-known people that have a lot of great insight on those topics, that if we were to just kind of share those a little bit more and get it out there into our profession, into these organizations, that maybe some of that information could do some good for a lot of people. So all of those aspects, I think I'm excited about for sure, because every one of those topics is something that I feel passionate about. And so I think I'm definitely really excited about exploring some of those topics, especially in a public forum, because it's great to have conversations in the back of the bay, at the firehouse, or at the kitchen table. But if we're not having them more openly and publicly,
that's good.
Then all it is just a small conversation around a kitchen table. And I think bringing out some of those firehouse kitchen table conversations is what is important.
Well, man, we're super excited for it. Like I said, it fits along with Robert's, what he wants to do and what I want to do. And I know the rest of the team around us, we all enjoy the fire service side. So if we can help some other firefighters in their walk and in their struggles, and
absolutely,
because that is the biggest, I think, thing in your industry is, I mean, you see a lot. You see a lot of things that most people can't even fathom or imagine, and to carry that by yourself is just, it's unreal.
Yeah.
So the more that we can help people, I think the better. And I think that's what I'm excited about, is to kind of join with you on this one. We've had a lot of fun working with East Techs and doing those projects, and we'll continue to do those. But on a personal side, I think this is going to be a really good journey that we start together. I'm excited. How do you feel about the podcast format?
Well, I'm new to the whole podcast format stuff. And let's be honest, I don't know of a lot of firemen that can say, yeah, tomorrow I'm going to be in front of a camera and talking to millions of people, and it's going to be great, because I think just by nature it's not something that we're born to enjoy. I've known a lot of really great people that the only reason they didn't want to get in front of a camera was because they just felt uncomfortable. But we've got to break through that barrier somehow, because there are tons of people in our industry and our profession that have a lot of amazing things to say and a lot of amazing things to share. And we've got to get through that, especially in this day and age. Everything's on social media, everything's on websites, everything's out there. And if we don't raise our voice, for our voice to be heard, then they're going to hear somebody else's, and that could be concerning. So definitely I'm excited to get that message out. I'm excited to segue into this as a ministry, as a calling, and I think it's going to do a lot of good things for a lot of good people. And even though that I'm not the most excited about being in front of a camera that much. I think I need to do it, and I think it's what God's leading me to do. The other day, my parents came by my office at work because they wanted to see where I worked. They wanted to see my office and different things. And in the midst of looking around, they noticed some of the media stuff that we've been doing. And they said, "Oh, man, you must really like that. You do that a lot." I laughed and I said, "Actually, it's not my favorite." And they're like, "Well, why do you do it?" And I said, "Because nobody else will." Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to do it. And if I'm able to, if we're able to,
yeah,
then I feel like we have a responsibility. So
I agree with you. And it pushes you and challenges you in different ways. I was talking to Lucas before you came, and, I've interviewed people for 10 years now, but usually behind the camera, never being on camera. So yeah. I feel you. We're with you, man. We're new at it too. We're trying the best that we can. And I'm excited for you, man. Thanks for coming in today.
Yeah.
And look forward to the future, man.
It's my pleasure, and I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Josh. I appreciate you.
That was good.